All right, fellas, it's Magnum Supreme here. Finally getting around to making the Noob's Guide to an AR-15 video. I don't know what I'll come up with for the video title. I'll think of something clever eventually. Sorry, girl. So today, all we're talking about is the AR-15. If you see something like this, it's probably an AR-15. There's a small chance it could be a direct piston-driven kind of gun, but those are gay, and no self-respecting man in 2024 should own a short-stroke piston AR. I'll just start the video off by saying that. Piss everybody off right from the get-go. I got a few examples of rifles here to show you, just to demonstrate, common features and whatnot, and how the AR works. And that's what this video is all about. So to start off, we're going to be looking at my USA Gun Bunker Custom Slick Side A1 Dissipator. So the original M16 from Vietnam has these style of sights. These are called A1 sights. If you're going to be an AR guy, you need to familiarize yourself with the difference between A1 sights and these here. This is an M16 A2, 20-inch barrel. These are A2 sights. Familiarize yourself with the difference. There's not a lot of difference in performance, but the difference is how you operate these sights and how they are zeroed. Not going to go into super in-depth explanation of that right now, but the short story is you zero at 25 yards, and it should give you a point of impact relatively close at 300 yards. A1 sights are done in yards. Don't start bitching at me, all my GWAT veterans. In the Vietnam days, in the early days of the M16, the late 60s, early 70s, A1 sights were fucking created with yards in mind because most military shooting ranges were still measured in yards. A few years later, I think in 1982, they went on to the M16A2, which features a heavier barrel, different sighting system and a longer stock and a different pistol grip. AR guys will bitch about this a lot, but the M16A2 is an utmost improvement over the A1 in every way. Mainly in the heavy barrel, because whenever you have a pencil profile barrel, large buildup of heat cause dispersion of accuracy very quickly. That is subpar in a combat environment where you're just dumping rounds downrange. Now we're going to go into some features of the AR-15 and what you need to look for to know you're dealing with an AR. The first dead giveaway is your front sight post. This contains your front sight, but it also is your gas tap. Underneath the barrel here, there's a hole in the barrel where underneath the front sight block here, there's a hole in the barrel where gas is tapped off and runs through this gas tube here. And underneath the handguard, you can see this metal tube here on the top runs all the way to your front sight post, and gas runs through this tube to cycle the action of the weapon. Very simple. Let me see if it'll be as simple to get this bitch back in place. Yep, we're good. Front sight posts often feature a bayonet mount. These are basically useless. It's 2024, guys. Dangling sling mount. Plastic clamshell handguards with heat shields. You have a brass deflector for your left-handed shooters. If you don't want to get brass in your face, this will bounce the shells off at a different angle than your face. This is a forward assist. This button here on the side of the rifle, this is a forward assist. So if for whatever reason you rack the gun and it fails to close all the way, fails to go into battery, you use this button and it will push the bolt forward. Forward assist. Other than that, very similar to every other AR-15. You have a safety on one side, safe and fire. That is safe, that is fire. And that is the real basics of the AR-15. This is pretty much where it all started. In the early Vietnam days, like late 60s, early 70s, the AR-15 was not a very popular civilian rifle. It was overshadowed by the Mini 14 and many other designs that were simply more economical. The Mini 14 is not a better weapon than the M16. It is a simple fact that Ruger was able to sell it at a price a lot cheaper than AR-15s at the time. Not to mention the way the market for the AR-15 has changed over the years. We went from this being the standard civilian weapon. Like if you owned an AR-15 for self-defense or whatever you want to own an AR for, this is probably what you had. And even if you had a carbine version, it was still front sight post, carry handle, iron sights for the longest time. Up until around the early 2000s, 2004, 5, and probably up to 2010, while the global war on terror was going on, fucking Black Hawk Down, shit like that. All the Delta Force special operators, they started to influence the civilian world. And that's how we went from carry handle pieces of shit to stuff like this, you know, featuring silencers and lights and red dots and all that stuff. And this is very cool. Don't get me wrong. This is cool. This is excellent. But I like this. I like this. I wouldn't rob a bank with that gun. I'd like stalk some towel heads on the mountains. I'd rob a bank with this motherfucker right here. You can't tell me this isn't one of the most menacing weapons you've ever seen. The AR-15 is a classic. If you're an American, if you live in the USA, you need a fucking AR-15. I mean, AR, America's rifle. It's in the name. Just kidding, retards. That's not what it stands for. It doesn't stand for assault rifle either. The AR in AR-15 stands for Armalite Rifle. The original concept for the AR-15, which was the AR-10, a 308 version of the same rifle essentially, was originally conceived by the company Armalite. The man, the myth, the legend, Eugene Stoner, while employed by Armalite, designed the AR-15. Eugene Stoner designed the AR-10 for Armalite. Now, Armalite wanted to get military contracts with that rifle. That military got, I think, 3 military contracts. One big one was to Portugal, and there's a couple other ones I can't really remember. Ask Ian from Forgotten Weapons. He knows this stuff. But it was essentially a failure of a weapon. And they entered it for U.S. military trials. It also failed to the M14. It lost. So what they ended up doing, they went back to the drawing board. They noticed NATO's interest not NATO, the U.S.'s interest in going to a small caliber, lightweight, fast bullet, like something like these 62 grain bullets right here. The original 5.56 load for the M16 consisted of a 55 grain bullet, and out of a 20-inch barrel, it was achieving speeds of around 3,200 feet per second. And that'll give you energy foot-pounds in the 1,200 to 1,300 foot-pound range. Very effective for a shoulder-fired, semi-automatic, light recoiling rifle. It does great things to soft tissue. It does great things. It really does. And I feel like that's only further reinforced by the fact that we adopted the M16 in like 1965 or 67 or something. And Russia, not even 10 years later, moved to their own small caliber, lightweight assault rifle with the 5.45 by 39. I think its effectiveness is undoubted. You know, if you hear people claiming that 5.56 was designed to maim instead of kill, total bullshit. You should immediately call that person out on their bullshit and tell them they're a retard. That's just very stupid. Plenty of people been killed by 5.56. Fucking plenty of them. And from what it looks like, 5.56 is gonna be killing people for the next 100 fucking years. The AR-15 is such a great weapon. You know, the U.S. military, who's very well known for trying to replace everything they have with something better at every convenience for no reason at all, they have done their damnedest to get rid of the AR-15 and have failed at every try. There's not been a single rifle that can outperform it, to the U.S. military's standards at least. And the U.S. military does more war fighting than about every other nation on the planet, so I think they know what they're talking about, you know. If, people are going to bring up the SIG 416 series of rifles. Or not SIG, I'm sorry, total brain fart. HK 416 series of rifles. That is a AR derivative because it uses the same buffer recoil system and it's compatible with any AR-15 lower receiver. But it uses a short stroke internal piston, or not an internal piston, a short stroke piston to cycle the action. Still uses the recoil buffer. It's not like a SIG MCX, which uses a short stroke piston, but an internal recoil spring that's all managed or sorry, it's all captured by the bolt. Very strange looking bolts too, if you ever look at them. But the 416 is a good weapon. But the problems you run into with any kind of operating rod above the barrel, you see a loss in accuracy. Now, it may not be, a huge loss in accuracy. With a direct impingement, which is what a normal AR-15 is referred to as, it's called a direct impingement internal piston system. They're capable of shooting 1-inch groups. With the proper optics and ammunition and shooter and conditions, you can shoot tiny little 5-shot groups all in one hole. It's not that hard to do with an AR-15 if you build it right and have the right setup. Short stroke piston ARs are just inherently less accurate. Now, you're not, like I said, the difference in accuracy is not going to be a night and day thing. It's not going to be like shooting an AR versus shooting an AK. Okay, you're still going to be able to put out 2.5 MOA with match ammo, maybe better, under certain conditions, but they're just inherently less accurate. And generally, that's not even a problem. The diminishment, if that's even a word, of accuracy that you get is not a problem. Going from 1 MOA to 2 MOA, under combat conditions, you're not going to notice it. You're going to be lucky to shoot 5 MOA, shooting for your life over some cover at hostiles. With that being said, there are benefits to short stroke piston systems, such as in the use of machine guns. Infantry automatic rifles, to be particular. The M27 IAR, which is a very popular weapon with the United States Marines right now, it's basically a derivative of the HK416 with a longer, heavier barrel, and it's designed for suppressive fire like a squad machine gun, kind of. An infantry automatic rifle, if you will. The only benefit that a short stroke piston would have over a direct impingement in that case is the fact that it's short stroke. Whenever you use an AR-15 a lot, if you're using it like a squad automatic weapon and laying down tons of hate, the first thing that's going to fail is going to be your gas tube. That's how the AR-15 is designed to fail. When the gas tube blows, it's very safe. It doesn't hurt you. If the barrel blows up, it can send shrapnel out and cause injuries. So the AR-15 is designed for the gas tube to go first, and they go pretty quick. It's not an infantry automatic weapon. It's not a squad, it's not a SAW. It's not an IAR. It's an assault rifle meant for selective fire, spray and pray up close, and long-range accurate fire in semi-automatic. If you try to use it like a machine gun, you're going to blow it up. It's just that simple. That's the way they're designed, and I think that's a good thing. Stoner knew what he was doing. Oh, man, I forgot. I left out a bunch on the Stoner story. So to loop back on that real quick, sorry for the huge jump back, but Eugene Stoner, as I mentioned earlier, he invented the AR-10. I never said he invented the AR-15 because he didn't. The AR-15 was invented by a guy named Jim Sullivan. Now, what Jim did, he worked for Armalite at the time, at the same time as Eugene Stoner. Eugene Stoner, seeing how the AR-10 project was failing, he decided to cut his ties and leave Armalite and go to work for the Cadillac Gauge Company. And he began working on his Stoner 63 universal machine gun concept. Very good Forgotten Weapons video. I'm not going to go into that. But after Stoner was gone, they being Armalite, they wanted to scale down the AR-10 into 223 Remington for military trials because they knew the U.S. military wanted a small caliber, high velocity style rifle. I don't even know what to call it. An intermediate caliber assault rifle. Wasn't really a thing back then, but we got them now. And Jim Sullivan is the man behind the AR-15. He was given the AR-10 design and instructed to scale it down to 223 Remington. Man did a good fucking fine job. It's going to be pretty hard to end this video. This is already a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Those are just some very, very basics of the AR-15. Just the absolute bare bones for the Eurotards out there. If you don't have the right to own weapons, first of all, I'm sorry. And second of all, hopefully I can be a useful piece of information for you. Hopefully this is engaging content for you. With all that being said, I want to thank you all for watching. This has been Magnum Supreme, and I'm out.